I nodded. Not in agreement, but just to indicate I understood the reference.
This is I Don't Even Own a Television. We're talking about Ernest Cline's Armada.
Because you demanded it.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
All right, welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television, a podcast about bad books. I'm J.W. Friedman.
I'm Chris Collision.
And we are gathered here today to discuss the new novel by Ernest Cline entitled Armada. By popular request, I gotta say.
Very popular request. You wanted it, you got it. Ready Player 2, locked and loaded. Give us some quarters. We're heading down to the Shitty Book Arcade.
It's true.
We're not going to stop till we've beaten the final boss.
The kill screen, if you will.
Oh, definitely. We're going to take pictures of ourselves reading this and send it to Nintendo Power and get a patch.
With a little rap song. No, I wanted to mention up front, that is why we're discussing this. I think this is probably the quickest turnaround we've had.
Oh, by far.
And so this is a new novel. People have been writing to us a lot because the Ready Player One episode of the show has become somewhat notorious. And I guess people wanted to know what we were going to think about this one. Surprise!
And it's a from what I gather, it's a radical departure from the first. So it'll be really fun for you in particular.
No, it's pretty much the same book. So yeah, what I realized after reading this is it's very good that Chris wasn't on the show the first time around when we talked about Ready Player One, because there's only so much I could say about this that I haven't already said in great detail. So maybe, I don't know, if you've read that book, go back and listen to that episode first, and you'll understand exactly why I'm just sound so defeated right now.
Yeah, and I only read this thing one time rather than two times, and I could not feel much more despair and rage than I do. So I feel your pain.
Yeah.
I guess I feel exactly half your pain.
Yeah. So that's why we're doing it. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting discussion for sure. I think before we go into it, I kind of wanted to say up top that I feel like this is a book that, for those of you who don't know, I mean, a lot of it revolves around video games and kind of nerd culture, quote unquote. And so it's a very easy genre to kind of deflect criticism by being like, oh, hey, you just don't get what this is about or something like that. So I just want to make sure everybody knows coming into this that we are not coming from a place where we hate video games or we dislike like Star Trek or Star Wars. I think, like both of us are probably way kind of too into that sort of stuff. But, I think we both have a lot of critical thoughts about this, and I just wanted to state up front that they're not coming from, say, a place of like a Jack Thompson where it's like video games are destroying America or something like that. It's just, this book is silly.
That's exactly right, and I also just want to point out, we're not coming at it from like a nerd cred measuring perspective either. I don't dislike this book because it's not nerdy enough or something. I dislike this book because it's poorly written and it's barely even a book.
Yeah, so. And I think this will be more clear as we go on. But I definitely, I never felt the need to construct a deflector shield before an episode until now. But I know that the topics that this mentions and the stuff, that it revolves around attracts a certain level of kind of credibility wars. And right. I don't want to be involved in that, and I know you don't either. So.
No, not at all. My point is not that you shouldn't like this stuff. My point is that you can like all the stuff mentioned in this book and still like good books, of which this is not one.
Yes. Okay. So now that that's out of the way, please don't send the SWAT team to our houses. So yeah, I guess it's probably good that we summarize the plot of this book as best we can. So now is the time for a recurring segment called Plot in 60 Seconds.
Nobody knows if you finish or not. You got 60 seconds to give them the plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
All right, plot in 60 seconds. We will try to summarize the plot of this book in 60 seconds. In this case, it will be Chris, the stalwart plot in 60 seconds.
And this time I think I finally have it. I've never successfully done it, but by God, this time I think I can do it.
Okay, are you ready?
I am ready.
Go!
All right. A young man goes to high school one morning. He gets in a fight because he has self-control issues. He sees a flying saucer. Is he going crazy? No. He gets recruited into the army. It turns out his lifelong obsession with video games was actually a covert training program intended to equip him to save the world. He meets a girl. He meets his dead father. His dead father wasn't dead. His dead father is a conspiracy theorist. Is his father crazy? No. Through a very boring plot twist, he saves the world, and everyone tells him he's super great. The end.
Awesome. Man, that was a plot in 30 seconds.
And if it sounds a little thin, it is, because you remember this exact plot from a second-tier Futurama episode that lasted 22 minutes.
That's true.
You may remember it from The Last Starfighter, a movie that gets name-checked repeatedly, but was, I'm here to tell you, not in fact a good movie.
Flight of the Navigator.
Right.
The upcoming Adam Sandler release, Pixels.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. There are probably very, very many more examples of this, but yeah, it's a plot that's been hashed and rehashed over and over again. And in swoops our hero, author Ernest Cline, to bring his unique spin on this story, which in this case revolves around a misfit teen, as you mentioned.
What?
Yeah, surprise, who has anger management issues like a dude named Ender.
Yep.
And
including a scene lifted from Ender's Game.
yes, the only difference is they're not naked, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
I don't think anybody's naked at any point in this book.
No, definitely not.
There are no real bodies in this book.
No, that's true, and actually that kind of leads into something that I was saying I wanted to mention even before we started recording, and that I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who are going to like this book, and that's wonderful. But if you read this book and enjoy it, you have no leg to stand on if you're criticizing adults for reading young adult fiction ever again. So please, if you like this book, recognize it for what it is. This is a YA book marketed as a book for adults.
I'm shocked that it is marketed as a book for adults. It is pure YA. It's about a special young person who saves the world because of his discredited interest in video games.
Yeah, and I mean, the book is so self-aware that in a lot of places it resorts to something that I didn't know there was a name for until recently. It's something that I see pop up a lot in this type of fiction, where characters will, very much break the fourth wall in order to tell another character, this sort of thing only happens in books, or this sort of thing only happens in movies.
Yeah.
And so I did some reading, and there's a term for that, and it's called lampshade hanging, and that shit is all over the place in this book. I mean, it's
the idea is supposed to be, if there's something ludicrous happening, you hang a lampshade on it, which normally I'm semi prone to accepting, because I'm a pretty forgiving reader, and if there's like a plot hole or there's something stupid going on, I just don't care. If the author puts something on it to indicate that they gave 5 minutes of thought to it, I'm like, okay, great, it's on purpose. I'll judge it for what it is. I don't reject it out of hand. But in this, it's not so much that as something you mentioned the other day, as this like really annoying elbow dig to the ribs of like, oh my god, isn't this like a cool ass movie?
Yeah.
And so it feels less like, hey, I know that this is a well-worn trope, but we're just trying to have fun with it, and more like, please allow your previous good feelings about this other thing to spill over into this thing that I made.
And please associate this with things you already love and feel the warm glow of nostalgia.
Exactly. Please enjoy this bit of sugar.
Yeah, and I mean, what you're describing, I think, works very well in cases where you're using it to maybe wave away a small plot point or, a detail that may otherwise be difficult to explain. This book uses this technique to invalidate its entire plot, basically. It's to justify the whole story of the book being as ridiculous as it is. The characters need to continuously remind you, like, oh, well, this is the real world. Things like this only happen in video games. And it's so clumsy.
It's very clumsy, and there's no payoff. There's no benefit to it other than, hey, remember thing that you like. This is like thing that you like.
Yeah.
But it's not doing the work that the thing that you liked did to make you like it, if that makes sense. The thing that I was thinking about as I was coming over is, this is sort of third order referential, right?
Yeah.
Where, you had mediocre stuff in the genre for millions of years. Well, not millions of years, millions of words, right?
Yeah, millions of words.
Thousands of pages. So you've got Buck Rogers, you've got previous podcast favorite Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yeah.
William Burroughs would be very different. So you've got that kind of actual pulp stuff happening. Then you've got Star Wars, which comes and is very referential to that stuff, but adds its own things to the mix. It adds an interestingly thought out world, some pretty spaceships, some great visuals, some actual interesting characters. And then you get this, which is just referring to previous things, but not trying to add anything to the mix. It never at any time has any sense of invention, which I think is what makes it so galling and so appalling to read, is that it's referring to all this stuff that was somewhat inventive while bringing absolutely none of that. And it's also referring to a bunch of stuff that was not inventive at all, but was just a fucking toy commercial. It sees no difference between legitimately good science fiction, or legitimately good fiction for that matter, and the Transformers cartoon, right? Which is literally just a long-form commercial. And that's the other thing that's so annoying and despicable about this book.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it almost functions as a brochure to other better science fiction stories and properties, as well as some bad ones. But it's like a, like see illustration 1A. And illustration 1A in this case is an entire movie, book, or, piece of fiction written by somebody else. Yeah. And I mean, it's not done subtly in any way. I mean, there are several scenes in this where he specifically refers to a character as being like so-and-so from this movie.
Right. It gets to the point where late in the book there are a couple of references that do not immediately get explained, and it actually feels jarring and shocking. So the standard form of a reference in this book is somebody will say, "Good shot, Red 5," and the person she says it to will then look back and say, "Oh, like from Star Wars." Right.
Yeah.
And so that happens so relentlessly that when it actually doesn't happen late in the book, I feel like he just ran out of steam.
Yeah, I mean, it's endemic. There's that with the narrative. There's also the fact that if there's not another character to explain where the reference came from, Ernest Cline will have the character's thoughts just explain it. There's within 4 pages of each other, he refers to his father, who may or may not be insane at this point in time. He refers to him as being, quote unquote, like Brad Pitt from 12 Monkeys, quote unquote, like Russell Crowe from A Beautiful Mind, and then refers to the cigarette smoking man from X-Files. Yep. And this all happens within 4 pages, and that's how the references are delivered in this book. Yeah. It very much kind of feels like there's not a lot of respect given to the reader here, even.
Oh no, absolutely none, because everything is just instantly explained. Let's be clear. We all like a good reference, right? Yeah. We like to drop in a Simpsons quote. I certainly like a number of the things that are mentioned in this book. I have strong, boring opinions about the movie Aliens. I'm happy to talk about them to anyone at any time.
Yeah.
But the mere act of making a reference is not a joke. Yep. And the mere act of making a reference is sort of meant as a bonding activity between people. The whole point is you don't have to explain it because you share this knowledge, right? The whole point is I drop something, you give me the appreciative nod, we move on because we know that we share this experience, we share this knowledge. This is a much more condescending approach to that because it goes on to explain it every time. And it's, even when it's not condescending, it's just pandering. It's not, we know this together and we can go do something. It's just, we know this together, ha ha ha, aren't we cool?
Next chapter.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a character that quotes Top Gun in this book.
And he is held in contempt because he only likes Top Gun.
Yes.
Whereas the other people are like smart and cool and also like Aliens and The Last Starfighter and Star Trek.
And they quote Yoda to each other.
And they talk a lot about Superman and...
But yeah, the Top Gun guy, basically, it's this incredibly elaborate thing where they spool out about 3 lines of dialogue from the movie.
Yeah.
The author has the character named Viper, and then still feels the need to explain after, like, we knew it was a reference to Top Gun.
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I'll be honest. I did not catch that.
Well, I guess I'm just more of a cool jock than you.
Damn it. Oh, guys, we should mention at the breaks he usually gives me a swirly.
It's true. It's probably a good swirly time right now, so let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back in a second. All right, welcome back to I Don't Even Own a Television. Yeah, we're talking about Armada by Ernest Cline. I think we've kind of given you a high-level summary of why this shit irritates us so much.
It's time to go deeper.
It's true. And I understand you had a passage picked out?
I don't have a passage picked out. Actually, I do have a passage picked out. I want to give everybody at home a sense of what it's like to read this. So let me contextualize this a little bit. Did you ever just go over to a friend's house and sit on their couch and watch them play a video game?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to hear that person who was sitting on the couch watching their friend play a video game tell you a story about it for 400 pages?
No.
That leads us to this passage.
All right, let's do it.
I synced my phone to the Bluetooth headphones built into my new Armada VR flight helmet. Then I queued up my Raid the Arcade playlist, my digital recreation of an old analog mixtape I'd found among my father's things with that title carefully printed on its label in my father's handwriting. The title led me to assume it was a compilation of his favorite gaming music, and I'd grown up listening to those songs while I played video games too. As a result, listening to my father's old digital combat compilation had become an essential part of my Armada gaming ritual. Trying to play without my Raid the Arcade playlist on in the background invariably threw off my aim and rhythm. That's why I made sure I had it queued up before the start of every mission.
This is like an instruction manual for being annoying.
Yes. So that gives you a sense of the subject matter of this book and, crucially, the thought and prose of this book. Every one of those sentences says the same thing. The same information is present in every sentence.
Well, also, I mean, it's worth mentioning, too, that the contents of the Rock the Arcade playlist, the aforementioned Rock the Arcade playlist, are an assortment of the most banal classic rock possible. Yeah. And it kind of speaks to something you were saying off mic, which is that, like, I mean, why don't you go ahead and describe it?
So, we talked a little bit about the references, and we talked a little bit about how the book feels to read, and a lot of it just feels like the attempt of the author to solve the following incredibly boring math problem. How can I, Ernest Cline, conceivably make this 17-year-old protagonist in 2015 interested in 80s culture? Mm-hmm. Right? And so he does that by having a dead dad who was super into the 80s, and all his dead dad's shit is around, and the kid is just totally immersed in all his dad's stuff. The end.
Totally true. I want to talk about this mixtape. Can we talk about the mixtape?
Let's talk about the mixtape.
I want to talk about the fact that I read this book and that part kind of hung in my mind for a while, and I wasn't sure why. And then today I was walking back from the store and I realized that is a point that's lifted directly from the Marvel movie Guardians of the Galaxy that came out like 2 years ago.
You're right.
Like, I mean, literally down to it's a dead parent gives future kid a mixtape filled with classic rock that they listen to while they shoot aliens. I mean, it's fucking note for note. And in a book that's so filled with references, I feel like if this was an intentional reference, it would have, been a wink and nod throughout. And it kind of led me more to believe that this is just kind of the lack of creativity we're talking about in the creation of this narrative.
I'm going to go stronger. I think it's a lift because I think that Guardians of the Galaxy is actually mentioned in this book. I could be wrong, but I believe it is name checked, and every other reference goes explicitly and excruciatingly mentioned, right?
That's true.
So I think it's just a straight lift and a spectacularly clumsy one.
Yeah, I don't know. It just bugged me because that's definitely one of the more remarkable parts of that movie. I thought it was kind of a neat gambit to get classic rock into a sci-fi movie.
Okay, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy does not appear to be mentioned by name in this. More recent things are mentioned by name in this, including Edge of Tomorrow, which is actually pretty good, but we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, no, I like that movie too. The original title was All You Need Is Kill, which is way better though.
So better. I think they actually renamed it for the home release, and it's
Live,
now,
Die, Repeat.
Yeah, which is also very cool.
It's great. But anyway, see, we aren't opposed to cheesy genre fiction, just the kind that's shitty. Yeah,
You can also tell I've had a lot of coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it felt like it was something that was heavily influenced by, but I almost feel like not an intentional lift. Like, I don't feel like it was done with malice. I feel like perhaps, and I think this says a lot, is that the world that Ernest Cline lives in is one where this is such a widely accepted and recognized thing at this point that you can just make it a point in your book and people will assume it's an homage.
Right. It's like saying, oh, they're after something called the Grail. Like, you don't have to explain what a Grail is.
Yeah. Right? But, I mean, anyway, I just really wanted to point that out because I knew that it was bugging me. And when I figured out why, it just, like, it made me groan out loud. So.
Absolutely. That's a really good catch. I didn't even put those together at all. Probably because he forgot to fucking lampshade it.
That's true. Yeah, like, you can't talk about a guy seeming like he might be paranoid without mentioning that he reminds you of Brad Pitt from 12 Monkeys. But this major plot point goes uncredited.
Right.
But in a lot of ways, I feel like it was an attempt to do the same thing, which was to set you up like with a soundtrack in your mind. But it's so clumsily implemented. He describes Another One Bites the Dust by Queen as having a machine gun rhythm.
Yeah, it's very bad, and I don't know if you got this far in your e-version, but the last page of mine is a facsimile of the cassette, and his dad's got really remarkably legible handwriting for a 17-year-old boy. I'm impressed by that. But yeah, it's very, very dumb. The whole book reads like. It's a collage of cultural artifacts, none of which actually include books. It's a collage made exclusively of TV and movies and toys, and that's it. And that's one of the things that's so sugary and sugar rushy about it. Is just nothing but this like cheap satisfaction delivery machine, right?
Yeah, and I mean, that echoes something that a previous guest, Mike Sacco, had mentioned on the Ready Player One episode, was that he described Ready Player One as kind of resembling an experiment that a scientist had done where they put rats in a box where they could either hit a pleasure button or a food button, and they found that they continue to hit the pleasure button until they died. And I still think that's very accurate for when we're talking about this book as well, because it is kind of coming from the same place. And I mean, also just to kind of speak to the sugary kind of movie reference, movie kind of stuff that's going on. I mean, going back to the mixtape thing, this book tries to give you a soundtrack. As it's going on, like scene by scene, when an action scene starts happening, it will immediately describe the music that's playing.
Right, and it's always appropriate, and that's one of the things that I think we were enjoying the contrast of in Guardians of the Galaxy. We were talking about a second ago. Like there, you'll have a big space battle, and it's like ooga chugga, ooga ooga, I can't stop this feeling.
Yeah,
right. Whereas in this, it's always. The pounding metal guitar came in as I started strafing bad guys.
Can we also talk about, I definitely don't want to devolve into a Diablo Cody-esque diversion into just talking about music, although, man, I'd probably rather do that than talk about this book. Ernest Cline has a real tendency to oversell the heaviness of very middle-of-the-road bands. Like, he describes fucking Scorpions' Rock You Like a Hurricane like it's a song by, like, fucking a grindcore band or something, you know?
Yeah, I do kind of want to show up at his house with like, a mixtape and 3 books. And just like lock him in the basement until he comes out.
Get out of your comfort zone, buddy.
Exactly. Like, hey man, I like Star Trek too, but guess what? There's books written without those words on the cover.
It's so true though. I mean, really, like, I think we had mentioned it earlier, but it's like everyone has friends who are like very much into kind of describing things they saw on TV, stuff like that to you. That's what this book feels like, though, is like if you let one of those friends just talk in your ear for 3 hours, like nonstop, and then transcribed it, that would be this book. Like I haven't encountered a level of and then in a book like for a long time, and this has it in spades.
Absolutely. And one of the really jarring things about the book is through the first maybe 85% of it, every emotional thing that happens is still filtered through that lens of references. Yeah. Right. So people will be having a moderately heavy conversation, or what passes for a moderately heavy conversation in this book, while still larding the conversation with dumb references to aliens or dumb references to Top Gun. The scene you mentioned is him almost getting kicked out of the army after a major fuck up.
Yeah. That involves, the possible death of thousands. I guess it's avoided, but I mean, they make sure to let you know that could have happened.
It could have happened, and it is done exclusively through a riff, as you explained, that I didn't get on the same conversation in Top Gun.
Yeah.
When it stops happening at the end, two things happen. One, it just sort of feels weird, and two, it makes you realize how little insight or empathy Ernest Cline actually has, because these characters is loosely used, cannot relate to each other except to trade references.
Yes.
So the scenes that are posited as emotional toward the end just fall completely flat because there's no there.
Yeah, I mean, you literally have like a boy saving his father's life, spoiler, and while that's happening, he's quoting Yoda.
Right.
And it's like these little things that like there might have been a decent moment here to develop a character, but everybody in this book does this constant reference thing. You mentioned the word riff earlier.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best description of the dialogue in this book. It's people riffing on pop culture to each other.
Right.
And I think that there's nowhere that becomes more evident than in the romance of this book.
Oh, God. I wanted to talk about that, but I'm afraid to talk about that.
Well,
let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's. I want to introduce. The character's name is Alexis. She's a super sexy tank pilot with a tank girl tattoo.
Oh, she's not just a super sexy tank pilot. She's a tough, sexy, cool tank pilot /
computer
world-class hacker.
Yes.
Exactly.
Mr. Robot, Wednesdays on USA. I think it comes on Wednesday. I don't know. But yeah, she's brought in, about midway through the book, has a fledgling romance with our hero. But all of this emotional content is described with the two of them kind of trading riffs on references back and forth.
That's literally all they do. And I want to build on that a little bit. So she's a cool, sexy, tough girl, and she saves his life at least once.
Yeah.
And
told you I got your back.
Told you I got your back. And would you like to guess, listener or Jay, what happens to her the second she stops being just a one-note, cool, sexy, tough girl with references and wants to talk about some feelings or emotions?
I'm guessing she's integrated into the plot fully and becomes, a realized character that teaches maybe our protagonist a little bit about how to learn about other people and stop existing in a weird bubble of pop culture references. And is that right? That
is exactly what happens. In a very different book. In this book, she promptly vanishes from the page and is never heard from again.
Yeah, that's very true.
There's literally one paragraph in the denouement where it's like, we went on that date. We started talking about how heavy things had been. Then we went on some more dates. Then the paragraph ends and she never appears in the book
totally
again.
True.
Like the second her emotions come into play, she vanishes.
One of the first lines that she delivers actually is when he finds out what her screen name is. She says her name is Lexi, and then she introduces her gaming screen name. Did they call them call signs in this?
Let's say that they did.
Her call sign.
Who cares?
And she says, this is a quote that I wrote down in my notes. It's Lexicutioner. it's a portmanteau.
Woo! It's so fucking bad. That actually, yeah. Oh god. And everybody does that. Like everybody's screen name is not only introduced but then explained. He falls for her in part because she recognizes that his screen name,
Red Beagle,
is a two-part joke.
Iron Beagle.
Iron Eagle, which is a terrible fucking movie. Anybody who says otherwise is either lying or incorrect.
I got your back on that, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And like again, that movie was aimed squarely at me. I think that came out in '87, so I would have been 13, and I was still like, this is fucking dumb.
Yeah.
So his call sign is also a portmanteau of references between Iron Eagle and some like Snoopy versus the Red
and the
Baron
Red Baron
bullshit. So frustrating.
So she recognizes it, and that's why they fall in love.
And that's another crucial thing. Everybody he meets is super impressed that he's like the number 6 ranked gamer in the world. People literally ask him for his autograph because he is such a super gamer. Meanwhile, he's number 6. He meets the 5 people who are ahead of him and is not impressed by any of them.
Well, also narratively, it's made
he's super special.
It's made very clear narratively that he is super special because everybody who ranks ahead of him, it turns out, in a daring twist later, has been recruited by the government 30 times, maybe 20, 30 years earlier.
Right.
And they've all known what was up this whole time. So they're highly trained government operatives. That's why they were maxing him out on the leaderboards, yo.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even his fault, man. He was like his network had lag. He was playing with like a cheap controller. he didn't even have turbo turned on, man.
They do make a point of talking about how his rig is like held together with duct tape and stuff. It's horrible. Before we go to break here, I wanted to say one of the parts of this book that actually did give me joy was the elaborate gymnastics that are accomplished to link everyone to their gaming call sign.
Yeah.
Like almost everybody like has a quality or something like that like lines up specifically with what they've named themselves. So you have, you discover stuff like this guy named fucking Viper is actually a fucking Air Force pilot who's like a hard-ass military guy just like Top Gun. Or you discover that fucking, what is it, Atomic Mommy?
Yeah.
Atomic Mom?
Atomic Mom.
Oh, well, she's actually a mom from Minnesota with 3 teenage sons. And like, it's just all stuff like that. Cushmaster 5000?
Yes, listener.
Cushmaster 5000.
Smokes marijuana.
Yep, surprise.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of stuff like that where it's presented like you're going to be like, oh, it's so cool. He's finally meeting these people in real life. And, that was one of the few parts I enjoyed just because it was so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was one of those, watching somebody take pleasure in something wildly dumb actually can be kind of fun. The other maybe half-assed effective thing is some of the battle scenes are okay. You'd rather be watching them on a TV, but some of them are kind of okay.
I mean, most of them are beat-for-beat descriptions of things that happened in movies, though. Like that whole flight down, we mentioned it earlier. One of the first scenes, our intrepid hero makes a mistake by following an enemy drone down an exhaust port. Hey, what does that sound like? Oh shit, it's the end of Star Wars.
What?
Yeah, I'm like, there's just so much shit like that where it's like, it's kind of cool, I guess, until you realize what you're reading is literally somebody else's description of a thing they saw in a movie.
Right.
And that happens again and again and again. And so, that's Armada. Let's take a break and we'll come back.
Let's take a break and do some games.
Sounds good.
Right.
Games.
Outlaws are led by TV, don't you know it's so? Instead of thinking we play Donkey Kong, there's something wrong with that. We're made to think life's like a game show. So here we go again. The one who does the most is the one who wins.
Welcome back to I Don't Even Own a Television, where we've been discussing Armada by Ernest Cline.
And unfortunately not Armada, the mediocre but still strangely fun Dreamcast video game.
Oh, there was a game called Armada, wasn't there? I didn't even remember that. I think we just got nerd cred for mentioning that, too. I can feel my fedora growing larger as we speak.
Oh, your beard's really looking good, too.
Hey, thanks. It's only on my neck. All right. Ooh, gosh. Okay, so all of that aside, I think it's probably time, before we get into all the fun and games here, there's a couple serious points, I think, that need to be made about this.
Deadly serious.
And not just because I've been drinking whiskey while we record this, although that may have something to do with it. But I wanted to say, I think this is one of the first things I wanted to mention. I basically have two huge sticking points with this. One of them is that we're looking at a book here that is very much geared towards nerd culture, and packed with references to games and movies that in a lot of ways are very surface level, very kind of the average stuff that you'd expect if anybody was writing about nerds, whether or not they understood it or didn't. And the thing that really stuck out to me while I was reading this was if Ernest Cline was a woman and this book came out, there would already be people crying about fake nerds, fake geeks, fake gamers, stuff like that, because this doesn't really go deep at all. And I feel like he's kind of caught a pass for this in a way that I don't understand. And I can't help but come back to the gender thing. So I did just want to point that out. And maybe that's too serious. I don't know.
I don't think that's too serious. And I think it does point at a weird part of, I don't know much about the reception of the book, but just a weird part of reading the book cold. I didn't read his first book, right? I'm not super embedded in that world. But I read this, and you can tell when you're being pandered to whether or not you're really centralized in that culture. Because, I literally grew up on Star Trek. I literally grew up on Star Wars. Science fiction was a very big part of my childhood, is a very big part of my life to this day. 2 episodes ago, I recommended a piece of science fiction as my recommendation. And say what you will about the genre, there are works in it that are serious, and there are works there that are trying to do interesting things and trying to say interesting things. And he doesn't reference any of them.
No.
There are, according to my quick check, maybe 5 books mentioned in the entire thing, 3 of which were turned into movies, which I think is crucial.
And he really, really is leaning on the movie interpretation, especially in the case of 2001.
Right, very, very much so. And this is a book that is a work of military science fiction that is fighting kind of multi-legged critters that mentions neither the book nor the movie Starship Troopers.
That's true.
Does not mention the book The Forever War, which was basically an explicit response to Starship Troopers and is kind of an under-recognized classic. So there's a lot of things that this book could have done in exactly the orbit it's in and been very interesting and maybe even thoughtful. And it just does absolutely none of those. It's lazy pandering, it's lazy gratification on every level and on every page.
I think the pandering thing is important, for sure, because that's definitely what's happening here. And I feel like that's a term people usually apply to people from outside a subgroup trying to make inroads.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think that what is happening here is you're seeing somebody who's being allowed to pander because it's already assumed that he's a member of the group he's pandering to. And there's something about that really rubs me the wrong way, I've got to say. I don't know. It's if you buy a DeLorean, you can write the shittiest science fiction possible.
Right.
And people are going to think that, you're down with them as long as you're a fucking white dude of a certain age. And that shit bugs me.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's sort of this weird in-groupy, friendy stuff. Everybody's letting him off the hook. If I had to call this book one thing, it would be sort of an inversion of Cheers. In Cheers, you go a place that's comfortable because everybody knows your name.
Yeah.
In this book, you go to the place that's comfortable because you know everything's name. And that's all you need to know.
That's totally true. Yeah, it's a good way to describe it. But yeah, anyway, let's play some games.
Woo!
All right, so let's start out here with some dramatic readings, which everyone loves. So here's a song.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound recorded. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
Fuck, I love that song.
Man, that song is so good. I like to listen to it while I'm blasting aliens from my VR rig.
Whoa.
All right.
That would be awesome. That would be like this book I just read.
Would you like to go first?
I would love to go first with a dramatic reading. So let's give you just a tiny bit of context to this book. The only real respect in which any of these characters have bodies is that twice in the course of the book they eat food. And a few pages after what I'm about to read, Actually, three times they're described as eating food, I think. The guy loves his mommy's meatloaf.
Yeah.
That happens early, and then he's presented with a 5-course gourmet meal that is described in exactly that many words. What comprised this gourmet 5-course meal? Don't fucking know, but 3 pages before that, a 20-year military veteran says the following. Care for some snackage, Lieutenant? He asked. Your favorite snacks were listed in each of your EDA profiles, so we stocked up on all of them. You're a Lucky Charms man, right? Dry, with no milk? We laid in a few dozen boxes for you. See? He pointed over at one of the unoccupied pods across the room, where half a dozen boxes of my favorite breakfast cereal sat stacked up like crates of ammunition. The other new recruits had an assortment of snacks and beverages laid out on the floor around their sunken pods, too. Stacks of nacho cheese combos and Slim Jims were scattered around Milo's pod, along with a small mountain of Diet Mountain Dew. There were bags of cheddar jalapeno Cheetos and a row of 2-liter bottles of Hawaiian Punch laid out for Wody. Bags of multicolored Skittles for Debbie, and besides Chen's pod, dozens of silver energy drink cans with Ki Lee printed on the side, surrounded by writing in Chinese.
Yeah. So after that, they have a 5-course meal that's described as a 5-course meal.
People who like video games like junk food get it.
It's like when you go to Target and you see the display that has Halo next to Doritos and Mountain Dew, and you're like, is this a joke? And then you go home and look it up on the internet and you find out that was a marketing effort.
Yeah. And it's just, again, like, this book is one of the many books we've read that feels like it's taking place in fucking real time. I didn't actually need a description of the junk food that each individual character preferred. I also didn't need a specific description of every fucking hallway he walks down, but ooh, boy, did I get him.
Well, you have to get him because every hallway is modeled after a different hallway from a sci-fi movie for reasons.
Listeners, if you know a quick, easy way to tie a noose, please Google that and send it to me.
All right, well, now it's my turn. I hope you're ready to rock, because we're about to do some rocking here on Dramatic
Man, am
Readings.
I ready to rock. Let me put my headphones in and, like, adjust the straps across my chest.
If I'm feeling salty, I might even put some music behind this. Here we go. I crack my knuckles, then press play on the best ass-kicking track on my father's old Raid the Arcade mix. As the opening bass line of Queen's Another One Bite the Dust hit began to thud over my helmet's built-in headphones, I felt myself begin to slip into the zone. The song's machine gun beat was a perfect match for the timing and rhythm of the enemy ships in nearly every kind of mission. We Will Rock You worked really well for me during shooting gallery scenarios like this one, too. When Freddie Mercury's vocals kicked in a few seconds later, I cranked up the volume of my headset, apparently loud enough for my microphone to pick it up. Oh, great, Cruz said. Sounds like DJ Geriatric is spinning again tonight. Oof. What a surprise. If it's too loud, you're too old, I shot back. Why don't you mute me and put on the latest Kids Bop compilation instead?
Damn.
Fucking burn, dude.
Kids Bop. Don't get me wrong, that's like the kind of thing that girls or minorities listen to.
Except nowadays, I would honestly say there's probably a point to be made that Kids Bop is maybe more obscure and ironic than Another One Bites the Dust by Queen.
Yeah,
good song, by the way. I like that song. Nothing about the beat reminds me of a machine gun.
That is one slow-ass machine gun.
Yeah.
Maybe his reflexes are just that much better than ours. That's why he's constantly pooning us online.
Pooning noobs, which is written in there a bunch. Noobs with zeros instead of... that's just the way I'm going to say it from now on. Noobs. I hope you like that. So, yeah.
Right now, people are scrambling to find their unsubscribe button.
Fuck you, noobs. We're doing it. So I know you love readings because you've been listening to them. So we're going to do another game called Russian Roulette.
Russian Roulette. Russian Roulette. Russian Roulette. Not actually Russian.
Not actually Russian. So since we're both using e-readers, we picked a random number ahead of time for each of us that represents a location in the book. Once we hit there, we're going to just read a paragraph of text for you.
Totally. Can you tell me my location?
Yes, you are 2881.
God.
All right, here we go. All right, so judging from the sounds I'm hearing, Chris has arrived at page 2881, or location. I don't know what that page would be for you reading at home, but you shouldn't be reading this book, so good.
Yeah, don't do it.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Finn Arbogast, several of us said in unison. Guilty as charged, he said, grinning and slightly out of breath. He went around the cabin, giving each of us a firm handshake in turn. I'd seen plenty of photos and video interviews with Chaos Terrain's founder, but in person, he was shorter than I expected. This kid is not impressed by anybody.
No.
He shook my hand last, and when his eyes met, he cocked his head at me sideways. You're Zach Lightman, aren't you? The famous Iron Beagle?
Nice.
Yeah, but bear in mind, none of the other people in the top 10 are worth, like, a special little conversation with Finn Arbogast. Only number 6, Mr. Zach Lightman.
That's true. But for the listener at home, Finn Arbogast is the software engineer entrepreneur who's served as a stand-in for the government's secret recruitment program where basically like all of their weird video game shit they've been doing, they've been pretending that they were actually games made by his company.
What?
I know, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
Can I mention also several times throughout this book, the score from Close Encounters of the Third Kind is mentioned very frequently to the point where their characters whistling the little 5-note salute.
Boom, boom,
boom, boom. Yeah. And yeah, that's pretty horrible.
I will also say that watching that movie alone at home at about 14 scared the piss out of me once.
Yeah, that movie was a little scarier than I think it was supposed to be. At least I maybe if you were a kid from a broken home like both of us were. Too real. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to do my Russian roulette here. The number that I received was 58888. Or just 3 8s, not 4.
Man, that's cool because we're coming up on the climax.
We are. Well, that's exactly what's happening now is at the very end of the book, it's been revealed that the alien invasion was actually just a flimsy pretext for aliens to test whether or not humanity could unite against an outside antagonist.
Spoiler.
Yeah, and this has never happened before in a book or a movie, so I apologize if I ruined this for you. But he's now talking to the hyper-intelligent computer that lives inside Europa, one of Jupiter's moons.
Beep boop.
What if we decline to join? No species has ever declined to join the sodality, the emissary told me. There are many benefits to membership. The sharing of knowledge, medicine, and technology, among other things. Your species' longevity and individual quality of life will increase drastically. I didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking it over. I just went ahead and said yes. Congratulations. That's it? Yes, that is it. What happens now?
Whoa, what does happen now? Please buy enough of this fucking pile of shit that a sequel gets greenlit and I can spend another 3 days hashing that out.
You know what? You don't need to worry because in the following 2 paragraphs, it's completely elaborated to you that yes, humanity joins the solidarity, whatever the fuck, and everything's great forever and ever. And then his dad and mom get married again, and
no, his dad's dead again.
Oh, he's dead again. Yeah, but there's a baby. His dad's dead again, but Xavier Jr. is coming. We didn't even mention the fact his dad's name is Xavier, because you can't even have a character in this book that isn't a fucking reference to something.
You sure goddamn cannot.
So, I don't know. Anyway, want to do one more?
Yeah. What should we do? We've got a ton of stuff that we could do. What would they do? We could do a most famous fan.
Let's do most famous fan.
Let's do most famous fan.
All right, here's a song.
They're rich and they're famous, but they read books too. They're rich and they're famous, but they're only a little better than you.
All right, most famous fan. We're going to try to figure out who the most famous fan in real life of this piece of literature is. I feel like this is kind of a foregone conclusion, but
by far.
Yeah, why don't you start here?
I mean, so I want to say that this is the most famous fan in a weird side world, right? Because this is a world, the world of the book is a world where everybody is explicitly self-identified, not as somebody who plays games, but as a gamer. I am a gamer. That is my primary thing. And that's a very small world. So video games are like the dominant thing in the world of this book, but nobody is actually playing like driving games or sports games of any kind. They're only playing this weird kind of MMO that is the training program for the military. So famous means something slightly different in the context of this book. And I didn't realize this till somebody said something online about it, but the protagonist, Mr. Zach Lightman, is basically Wesley Crusher.
Yes.
He's young, he's special, he's a bit of a fuck up, but he's genuinely gifted, whatever. So I gotta be honest. The voiceover person for this book is probably its most famous fan, and that would be Will Wheaton.
Yeah, and he's the narrator of the audiobook.
He is the narrator of the audiobook, and I should backpedal a little bit. I like Will Wheaton. I think he's a smart, sincere person. I think he's slightly too into things that I'm not into, but I don't. I think he's a hard worker. I begrudge him 0% of his success, and I hope he has much more success.
Did you know that in Ready Player One, he was the president?
Wait, what?
Of the galaxy?
Oh, Jesus, titty fuck. No,
yes.
I did. That is awful.
Yes. In the first one, he was the president of the galaxy. Cory Doctorow was his vice president from Boing Boing.
Right. No, I know who Cory Doctorow is.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
so, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he loves this book.
But he didn't
because
ask
it
for
blew
that.
smoke directly up his ass. But I think you're right.
Either that or George Lucas, right? I think George Lucas is probably a pretty big fan of this.
Spielberg, too. I guess he's involved with the movie version of the first one.
Yeah, I think he's producing. But then again, he produces a lot.
Yeah. I guess we should probably take a break and then come back, do some letters, and let people get on with their lives.
Let's all get on with our lives.
All right. All right, welcome back to I Don't Even Own a Television. It's a podcast about bad books. We've been talking about Ernest Cline's Armada, but it's time to wind down. Finally.
Yeah.
Off mic, we've spent about 45 minutes discussing the finer points of pro wrestling, so please remember, when we criticize this book, we're coming from a place of supreme nerdery. We just don't like it.
True.
All right. So, yeah, I guess it's probably a good time now to talk about things that fill us with joy instead of inexplicable rage.
Yeah.
So let's do some recommendations here. Chris, do you have anything you'd like to recommend to the audience at home?
Absolutely. What I would like to recommend is a book by... I'm a little nervous that I might have recommended this before, but I don't care.
It's okay.
It's still good. It's a book by Hele DeWitt. It's called The Last Samurai. No, it does not have anything to do with the Tom Cruise movie of the same name. It came to mind with this because it is a book that is also very influenced by movies and by other cultural artifacts, but it's influenced by them in some really rich and interesting and rewarding ways. It's one of the favorite books that I've read over the last couple of years, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. Hele DeWitt, The Last Samurai.
Cool. For me, I'm going to recommend a series of books. And kind of to piggyback on what we're talking about, these were recommended to me by former guest Pancho Martinez, so
Whoa.
I'm not sure if this is what he recommended on the show himself or not, but I don't think it was, and it's a series of books called the Southern Reach Trilogy by James Vandermeer, And these really kind of stuck out to me as really good pieces of genre fiction. They're sci-fi. It's kind of based around this huge enigma, but what I found really interesting is the fact that it's a multi-book series based around an enigma that kind of keeps things mysterious throughout. And there's no point when I was reading it where I wanted to groan out loud or anything like that. So I definitely checked this out. I'm about 3/4 of the way through the second book of the trilogy now, and I'm enjoying every minute. And I was actually super pissed that I had to stop reading it to read Armada. So that's probably the best recommendation that could be made for me right now.
So it's not like Armada where the one extremely limp-ass twist is relentlessly foreshadowed throughout?
I would say no. There's a ton of foreshadowing, but I still don't know what it's referencing. And that's kind of amazing. Like, I just really feel like there's a sustained sense of mystery throughout this. And I've probably read about 650, 700 pages of this series now. I still don't know what's going on, but it's in the best way possible.
Nice.
Okay, so recommendations are done.
Yeah. Should we do some letters?
Yeah, let's do some letters.
Right on.
Here's a song.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter F, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
Man, I love that letter song. We're kind of running a little bit behind on letters. Rest assured, we do love them all. We read them all. We chat about them all. They just don't all make it to the air. This time around, I'm going to break format from letters a little bit and go themed. It's very exciting.
Okay.
So this is just going to be some of the better questions we've received from you, our beloved listeners.
All right.
All right. So this one comes from one particular Scott. Dear, I don't even own a podcast. Deep callback.
It's been a while.
Yeah. My friend and I, both listeners since Bill O'Reilly called Bob Schaefer, have a dispute and would like the insight of the global authority on bad books. When reading a truly garbage book that needs to pick up the pace, I lie down in bed on my right side and only read the pages on the left side of the book. My friend finds this outrageous and an affront to literature. Is this a cromulent way to read a bad book? Additionally, do you have any IDEO TV preferred ways of speeding up a particularly slow book?
Yes, whiskey. You will find yourself skimming chapters you didn't even plan to.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's... So is that... So let's jump back to the first question. Is that an okay way to speed up a bad book?
I think once you've kind of maybe made peace with the fact that what you're reading is bad,
right?
At that point, it's just all about kind of getting to the end and understanding what happens on the way there.
Yeah.
I'm on board.
He's on board. All right. I think that's a little tiny bit disrespectful. I will say, though, that I do have a very explicit skim rule where I will just, I do try to pass my eyes over every page. But there is definitely going to be stuff that I'm going to miss. So I lighten up the reading level and heighten up the skimming. Whiskey definitely also helps. I will also say that I do have, as I've mentioned before, an explicit no long italicized passages rule. Fuck you and fuck that. I'm not reading that.
That's true. Anything italicized or printed in block quotes, that's ignorable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Tips here.
Yep. Okay, so another question from a beloved listener. Dear IDEO TV, if you could make any of the following things mentioned on the podcast a reality, which would you choose? A Dungeons & Dragons rulebook narrated by Ice-T. No interleague play, an instrumental Red Hot Chili Peppers album, the knowledge of what that dude's beef with Alan Alda was. Thanks for making the podcast, guys. And that's from either somebody named Scott or somebody named Lars. Gmail is really confusing. You guys do weird shit with your Gmail accounts.
That's why I keep mine simple. It's just love to fuck 69. All right, sorry.
Wait, that's you?
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Cover blown. For me, this one's easy. It's no interleague play. I've talked about this before, and that I truly feel like the World Series should be an event, and it's not an event if those teams have already played each other this season. So, yeah, I hear you groaning, Chris. What's up?
I'm not going to get into this on this podcast.
Yeah, that's for a different podcast.
We'll take that off air.
Hey, if anyone has a baseball podcast and would like to get in touch with either of us to argue about this, I don't even own a television at gmail.com. We'll come on and fight with knives.
Absolutely.
Spoken like a true American League fan.
Totally. I love the American League.
Anyway.
Yeah, so for me, in order, no interleague play would come in dead last. I think every team should play every team every year. An instrumental Red Hot Chili Peppers record is just about my least favorite thing ever. The only thing I would like less than that would be probably an Anthony Kiedis spoken word album.
What about an instrumental Toad the Wet Sprocket?
I am so in. I would get so much work done to that thing. I would love that.
Isn't that? Oh yeah, that's Cigar Ross.
Out on all the beefs, I'm actually fairly interested in that. But for me, yeah, it would 100% be Dungeons and Dragons rulebook, or pretty much any other book narrated by Ice-T. I love Ice. I love his voice. I'm happy to hear that talk about pretty much anything, especially, Umber Hulks or whatever.
Yeah. He did. He was part of that weird kind of ironic audiobook a while ago where they had a lot of celebrities narrate some Driz Durden stories. And I guess Ice-T did a little bit on that, and that's what kind of led to the piece he was referring to, which is that it would be awesome just to have a whole book of D&D rules narrated by Ice-T. But yeah, for me, it's no interleague play because go Giants. All right.
And the other thing is, like, the nice thing about Ice-T is he would do it if the check were right.
Yeah, for sure.
And he would show up and he would do his job, and I think we would all just very much enjoy that.
A consummate professional.
Exactly. Okay, so this is the last one, and this is from a listener named A Meat, which is wonderful. Hey, guys and gals. I don't have a list of biology things I do while listening to the podcast, but I do have a question. What are your least favorite sequels to books you legitimately enjoyed?
Ooh.
And then he really goes ham on one such book, and concludes, sorry, this turned into an email about how I hate some Dan Simmons sequels, but I'd love to hear which sequels I should steer clear of.
Do you want to go first here? Because I don't really have anything in mind.
Okay, so this is...
Oh, now I do.
Okay, so go ahead.
For me, it's everything in the Dune series after Dune.
That's a great example.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that. But yeah, Dune is great. Everything else that Frank Herbert wrote about that shit afterwards, not good. And I did not like it. So that's it for me.
To say nothing of the corpse humping that his son engaged in later, right?
I try to forget about that.
Which is fair. I too loved the original Dune. Okay, so I need to caveat this a lot. I no longer like the first book, and I want that to be exquisitely clear. But
smokescreen up,
yes.
Impervious to criticism.
Exactly. Raise deflectors, get defensive. At the time I read Ender's Game, I enjoyed it.
No,
and there's both some sequels, which I loathed, where...
Speaker of the Dead.
Yeah, after his genocide, he sort of wanders the universe and has a bunch of really pointless adventures with unpronounceable alien names that I hated.
Basically, after he annihilates a species, he's called into service to travel throughout the universe and speak on their behalf about the dangers of annihilating planetary species.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Which is, again, I have no problem with the pot calling the kettle black, because I believe that the pot has a unique perspective on blackness and should be consulted. But I will say that what really even curdled it worse, and what made me realize I actually now hated the book, was a reboot called Ender's Shadow.
Oh, yeah.
Which takes Ender's Game, rewrites it from the perspective of a secondary character, and instead of it being a book about a magic little boy who saves the world, it's actually a book about an overworked magic little boy who can't save the world unless another magic little boy is actually pulling the strings the whole time and bailing him out. And there's an afterword in that where Orson Scott Card just ladles venom over the entire series and is like, I really resent writing little kids in space books and being expected to write little kids in space books. And I remember reading that and being like, well, that's fucking great, bro, because that means I don't have to read them anymore either. So I guess I should say that I hated reading the book because it was awful, but that I should be grateful to Ender's Shadow because it freed me of ever having to give a shit about Orson Scott Card again.
I will say that despite that kind of lucid evaluation of the series, it didn't stop him from writing like 6 or 7 books in that fucking Ender's Shadows oeuvre.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. He's mad because he thinks that these are crappy books and he has to keep writing them because he needs a new house, and oddly writing explicit screeds against homosexuality does not buy houses, but buying veiled screeds against homosexuality with little kids in space mouthing the words does buy new houses.
I was just going to mention this has a weird synergy with what we're talking about, because Orson Scott Card is also kind of notorious for he wrote the story for a video game about 3 or 4 years ago that was kind of routinely boycotted because it contained a lot of his reactionary right-wing viewpoints, and there was definitely a huge portion of the internet, the kind of gaming internet that is maybe a little bit more politically aware, that was like, hey, maybe we shouldn't buy this game because this is filled with some kind of fucked up shit. So it's weird how much that kind of, I don't know, coincides to what we were speaking about earlier.
It all comes full circle, man. It's not weird. That was designed.
Yes, totally. We're tight. Here on the show, tight production is what you can expect.
Exactly.
And I don't even own a television, LLC.
Yeah. Cue dog walking through noise.
Yep. Just ignore the grunts and pants coming from my bulldog at stage left.
Don't ignore them. Enjoy them.
And on that note, I guess it's probably time to say goodnight. So to the folks at home, thank you so much for listening. If you want to get in touch with us, it's I don't even own a television at gmail.com. We'll read your shit.
We will. Probably even on the air eventually when we get to it. Same handle on Twitter, or you can bug us at CF Collision on Twitter.
Yeah, at Satellite High. That's me. All one word. We're IDEO TV Pod on Facebook. I do want to mention, actually, you can get a t-shirt if you're so inclined. What? We set that shit up. Go to bit.ly/IDEO TV shirt. And you can get a cool-ass t-shirt with our logo on it. What?
And if you don't, we know you never really loved us.
It's true. And if you do, people who don't know it's a podcast will just think you're a pompous jerk. So thank you so much for listening, everybody. And until next time, keep reading crap.
Do it.